check this out. So we're looking at the screen right now. There's my slew sensor. As you can see, you will look at the screen. I am not moving the slew sensor. Now, if I just push the throttles forward just ever so lightly, and I'm not touching the slew sensor, do you see how the slew sensor is just wigging out, going all over the place? So I've got to have a little bit of pressure on the throttles. So I'm actually at 70% instead of 65. So this is completely off, which is where it's pretty much idle. And then when I bring it up to like 70, okay, then the slew sensor is active, plus all the other buttons. This is weird, but if I just back off the throttles and move them up and down, you can see the slew sensor just goes crazy. Now this happens also in the configuration, so you can see where the slew sensor would be here. It doesn't move at all, and when I move the throttles forward, then I can move the slew sensor around.
So I have a solution how to fix this, and it is that. So I've taken this thing apart. This is the second time I've rebuilt this. Sensors, I've done as much as I can with it. I've only had it for a few years, and it should work. I've even done the replacement slew, but that thing just stopped working. I don't know what it was, but it basically, this throttle would not work at all without this one being pushed forward slightly, and then this would start to track, and the slew and all the other buttons wouldn't do anything. It started getting, I don't know, it just started going away, and I don't know why. Whatever's going on with this, I don't know if there's a chip or something in here. Maybe the board inside this is all screwed up. I have no idea. It's in great condition. Nothing ever got, spilled or messed up in it and stuff like that. But it is what it is. But it's failed me twice now, and I'm just not going to mess with it. I have a buddy of mine that actually has this exact same thing. His broke, and he got another controller just like this. I think he got a Verbal or something like that. But this is the Winwing EX15EX. Well, I just took the cover off, and the stuff that was in the bottom of this was pretty sketchy. I don't even know what that is. Almost looks like it's deteriorating into some kind of like goop or foam or something like that. But this was in the bottom of this tray, and this thing was super, super clean, but it's like there's crap everywhere on this thing. There's the modification. Took all the stuff off and didn't have to do this. I don't know if I'm going to put any tape over that. There's no real reason. I'm not worried about anything getting in it, but for the most part, it is ready to go. So I'll have all these additional switches and features and everything like that for whatever. I've got way too much stuff as it is, but it's going to complete the setup a little bit further down the line. But I don't think I'm going to be needing any other peripherals anytime soon. So let's get these things mounted and figure out what I'm going to do. Where the hell am I going to put my mouse? So I guess we got a little bit of a challenge. Only these lights turned on, none of this other stuff illuminated, and I think it's probably because the circuit board's not seeing the rest of the components. So without putting all the levers and gears and all that kind of stuff back there, I'm just going to put the chips. That's why I kept all this stuff. So I guess this is, more necessary than I thought. Hopefully I don't have to do something stupid with this where I got to take the chips out of this. I might have to, but I think it's just these guys, these sensors. So I don't know which is which, but I know that there are 4 potential things to have to plug in. So I'm just going to try these 2, plug it back in, and if it doesn't work, I'll have to take those controllers apart and see if I can take the boards out and just put the boards inside this box and just leave them there, tape them down, and then see if it lights up. So I just took those, just plugged them back in. Hopefully those are the right sides, I believe they are, but they'll just kind of sit there, and let's go ahead and plug it back in and see if it gets recognized. Yeah, the ordeal's never going to be easy, so I'm just going to have to do what I have to do and pull the boards out of these actual controllers and then just stick them in there. Pain in the ass. Alright, so the good news is, I did have to take this whole thing back out. It does need to talk to these other circuits. There are definitely some things that go back and forth between this, but this is just a kind of an on-off whatever trigger mechanism for the throttle, the left side, and then there's a flip switch and a pinky switch, but that's the only 3 things that are really on there that do anything. So I did have to keep all these things on there, but the good news is that I was able to bring this up here, and you can see when I hit some of the buttons, like for example, like this is the flaps. So that's the middle position, that's on. So the flaps work, and even what's cooler, slider still works, perfect. So I can still use that as a zoom slider, even though I've got like 3 over here. But I'm going to essentially really only care about, and I think I'm not sure, but these things actually probably still work. Oops, if I don't destroy them as they go. Let's see if they work. It doesn't look like any of those switches are working, which is not a big deal. I don't need them to, but this is the pain in the ass. I can't just disconnect. Let me see if I can just get rid of this. Hold on a second here. Pop this off. Let's see if this makes any difference. Okay, that's unplugged. And none of those switches are working, but let's just see if the regular buttons work. Yep, they still work. So don't need any of this stuff connected because these are really just inputs. But this circuit board has to be on there. Now the only problem is all three of these items right here are all soldered directly to the board. So it's not like I can just pull this thing off. I actually have to desolder this whole board for those 3 points, those 3 points, and those 3 points. Luckily, I've got the tool to do it, and it shouldn't be that hard. So I'm going to try that and put this whole thing back together. Sweet. So this is all the solder that I pulled off of just this board, and you can see some of the components still are hanging on, and they are going to be a little bit troublesome. So I got to kind of work at it and keep working at it until I get at least a break. That one right there is a little bit hard, but I can wiggle that. But these ones in the center, as you can see, those are problematic. So I don't recommend that you actually do this. This will essentially make your board innate, and you know, it's an expensive OTAS. You could probably just replace another board or fix it or whatever. But just letting you know, this is not an easy repair, but it can be done. That was a pain in the ass. Finally got the board loose. I just started snipping underneath the board because it was just taking too damn long. I tried everything, but I snipped it off. So hopefully I didn't fry the board by putting too much heat to it, but it looks like it's in alright shape. So we're going to test it out now. Well, good news, good news. So just that little board with all the disconnections. So I've completely rendered this thing into just a button box. It'll never be a throttle ever again, which I'm okay with. But that's really all I need it to be, is just these extra buttons, because I've got a great throttle now. So I'm good, but that is the modification. You will have to take it out of the main, not this piece. You don't need that at all. Where these are connected, you don't need the slews or any of the other switches and stuff. They're just inputs at that point. So if you have this throttle and you want just an extra button box, you can just go through them. I ripped and cleaned those things right off. So those things are pretty much innate and toast, but I'm just going to keep them for spare parts for whatever reason. And all these things switches they're just three-way on-off, you know, switches, just like most of the stuff in here. I actually happen to have, when I was building, you know, guitar pedals and all that kind of jazz, this is the exact same type of switches. I think they have one on here, but if not, I've got a million pieces of those guys here and here, like these guys. These are basically the same type of switches. So whatever you're using, you know, they're just basically three-way switches with those little attachment switches and stuff like that. So, but yep. Hopefully that helped you figure out what you want to do with yours if you decide to. Something to point out as far as the difference of the units and everything like that. You can see that this has, you know, a bit of a plastic kind of a feel to it. Plus the weight of this is probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 pounds, something like that. This one feels like it's got to be, I don't know, 10 pounds. So it's definitely a metal frame. The whole thing is, you know, solid, very, very heavy duty. This whole thing is basically just, you know, screwed in plastic and, you know, whatever 3D printed parts and all that kind of stuff. So it's definitely, the unit feels very quality. Don't get me wrong. You know, you can adjust the friction. It feels very, very smooth. The buttons, the one thing about the buttons I will tell you, they do feel a little bit more, I don't want to say toyish, but they feel a lot more delicate. They don't feel like they have a huge kind of a, like you can hear, that's got a really nice spring action to where this is, well, that doesn't even have a spring action. It's just, I don't know how that works. That's just intermittent stuff like that. So I could use probably chaff and flare for something like this and maybe use this for a boat switch, like something like this. I guess it's a China hat, but I don't know. This is the dispenser. You know, it's just an intermittent. But anyways, these right here, these are very, very solid, you know, very, very easy to push. But listen to the switches. They're very, very heavy duty. Very, very expensive. These, they're very, very soft. You know, I don't know how long these things will physically last, but like I said, the quality of the parts inside of this are very, very, very high quality, which is kind of interesting why this thing even broke, but yeah. That's just the main differences and stuff like that. There is a quality build. So this one, I understand why this one's so expensive. I mean, you can physically, the weight on this thing, it's hard to pick up with one hand. This one you can lift with your pinkies. So it's just something